What is going on, guys? Williamsburg here bringing us a brand new Busch Gardens video. Now, I know it's been a minute since I made the first one a few weeks ago, but as you can see with this room I'm in, I've been just a little busy. And I want to make sure I had time to really devote and work on the video. You know, there might be a little bit of an echo, maybe some buzzing. I'm still putting up the acoustic treatment. You know, that's just kind of a slow, monotonous process. You might hear a little bit of echo, but we're going to be working on fixing that, so don't worry. What are we talking about today? How do we follow up such a big, controversial topic after the first episode of how can Busch Gardens compete with Disney, or more or less, well, how can Busch Gardens just grow in general? And I think we talk about the big elephant that's always been in the park since 2011. I think we talk about what I like to call the beautiful disaster that was Mach Tower. So, if you're a Busch Gardens aficionado or fan, or if you attended Busch Gardens anytime in the last 12 years, you probably remember a large blue tower. Whenever you got close to the park, no matter where you came in from, you saw that tower just piercing the skyline. And you're like, man, I bet that ride's awesome. I bet that ride's so cool. I bet that's like one of the pinnacle rides there at Busch Gardens. It was a ride at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. I really want to dive into what happened and what went wrong and what was its potential. And then you're going to really get me on the soapbox later in this video. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe down below for more of these videos, because we're going to start getting these videos at a much quicker pace now that we're in the studio and got a cool setup. So let's talk about Mach Tower. So what was Mach Tower? It was the first attraction that Busch Gardens built after SeaWorld acquired it in 2009. In 2010, the drop tower was announced as part of a multi-year rebrand or renovation of the Oktoberfest area, which obviously ended with us getting for Bolton, which is a total win, and the whole area is kind of getting more vibrant with the colors and really livening itself up. And I remember when it was just a catapult there and the big bad wolf, and we'll talk about the big bad wolf in another video, but I remember when it was the catapult, the big bad wolf, and it was kind of like that bland, just brown and beige coloring on all the buildings, which was fine because it worked for the old country look. But you know, you got a lot of that in the England section of the park. I'm glad that they took an idea as like, you know what, let's make it more of a festival since it's called Oktoberfest, and let's liven it up, bring up the colors. And I think it was a fantastic choice, and Mach Tower really kicked that off. If you see any pictures or you saw it in person, just the vibrancy of it, like the big yellow top, the sign looked amazing. You saw it right as you walked across the bridge from Italy. It was such a cool idea. Where did it all go wrong? You think it's hard to mess up a drop tower because as a lot of rides have different features, and you know, they can always be good and bad. This one had a up, down. When it operated, that's what it did. But it was supposed to come with so many cool features. As you went up, it spun you around 360, so you got a full view of the park, which I will say, for where it lacked as a drop tower, it worked fantastic as an observation tower, because for Busch Gardens Williamsburg, known as the world's most beautiful theme park, so 30-some years in a running, just saying, I'm just saying, it was a beautiful thing to be able to just go and see the whole entire park. And I think they really bought into that, because if you ever went at Christmas Town and it was Mach Tower and it was an observation tower, it would take you up, spin you around slowly, and slowly bring you back down. It was a great observation tower. I think that's something I do miss about it being gone. It was supposed to be really innovative, really have more features than just up and down. As you went up, it would play European music, and as you got to the top, it would be a couple notes that would fade out, and then it would drop you. I believe there was like a 1, 2, 3, go. At one point in time, I was at it, or I'm having a Mandela effect. You were like, there was music on that ride? Well, if you got one of the lucky times where it worked, yeah. I was lucky enough to ride it a couple times where the music actually did work. This ride was just cursed. It closed down in 2012 because the manufacturer wanted to close it down for some necessary renovations, and then it opened up the next day. It was like, when you said it was going to be closed indefinitely and then you open it the next day, what really were those changes? And Mach Tower became kind of renowned in the theme park communities as it's okay. It's an okay ride. It's like not a great drop tower, but where it sucks as a drop tower, it makes up for it in being an observation tower and being able to see the entirety of the park and seeing the Anheuser-Busch factory that's across the way. It serves some great purposes, and that's why it wasn't overall just straight up hated. But it wasn't really an intent to drop. You know, it kind of dropped slowly, and it stopped the drop a long time before you got to the ground and then ease you down, whereas a lot of other drop towers will get much closer to the ground before it slows up on the brake. And the ride is kind of operating that overall lingo state for on of like 11 years. It was a flip of a coin's chance when you win if it was going to be open or not. And it took me a long time before I even wanted to get on it, because there was a good chance you could get on it and they get broken down. There's so many times I have a picture of Mach Tower that I took, and it's a beautiful picture because you got the riders on the thing at the top of the tower. Well, the reason I was able to get such a good picture because it broke down and they were all up there. So I was in Oktoberfest and I took a picture and I went, I might as well make something good of a bad situation. Took the picture. And that's how I got my Mach Tower picture. And that's the thing. It kept breaking down. And it's like, you don't want to be stuck, you know, on a mid-drop tower, but fantastic observation tower. And that's just the thing. That the ride was just frustrating because I enjoyed riding the ride whenever I rode it, because it was still a fun ride. It was just hardly ever open. And then you just kind of get cold feet when you want to ride it. You're like, I might get stuck on it. So let's go ride for Bolton. I mean, it's right there. Let's go ride that one instead. They seem to do everything they could over the 11 years to keep it open with the knock tower change, with the just kind of running it up and down. There were times, even during the summer season, where they would run it the slow up and down, just as an observation tower, just because that's what they could do. And it helps with, you know, capacity management in the park. But, you know, I can't count the times that I walked into the park and they had the little sign when you walk in and it says which rides are closed at the moment. And you see Mach Tower and you're like, oh, okay, it's closed again. And, you know, you want to get mad, but it just became the expectation. But finally, there were rumors about Mach Tower closing at the end of last year. And everyone was like, okay, it's about time. Like there's a group of Busch Gardens fans that certainly did love the ride, and they were really sad to see it go. But a lot of us, even me as like a hardcore, like I will say anything they do is great, can admit that Mach Tower needed to go because something else could go there, like a Starflyer or just another type of drop tower that's more intense. And I don't know for sure, but I believe that Mach Tower, I tried to look it up, but I couldn't really find anything. But I believe Mach Tower is supposed to be a prototype of some sort. I don't know what part of it was really a prototype, but I believe a piece of it was a prototype. But the part that you want to get me on a soapbox, here's my soapbox. That ride, mixed reviews. You know, people liked it. It was fine. You know, you'd ride it just to kind of get a good look at the park. But you know what Busch Gardens did for it? They gave it a closing, not a closing ceremony, but they told the fans at the beginning of this year, end of last year, they said, these are your last days to ride Mach Tower. Go ride it on its last days, and gave you the exact day that was its last operating day back in January. It's like, go ride it before this day, because after that day, we're going to close it. And when I tell you they took it down immediately, I mean, it was so fast. It was like they were just ready to get it caught, which I think was the thing, because I think the team in the park that goes to all the rides when something goes wrong, I think they were like, this ride cannot close down so we can rip it apart. I bet they, you know, like those rooms where people just go in there and break stuff? I feel like they just took a bunch of like hammers and bats and just beat the crap out of the pieces of Mach Tower as they brought it down, just to let go of their frustration that the ride gave them over the 11 years. Which I would too. I mean, I'm not denouncing that activity because I think it's a fantastic activity. But the part that gets me on the soapbox is a ride that was just accepted by public, not loved, not disliked, just everyone kind of accepted it was there. Fans got more of closure with that ride than we did the beloved ride, the ride that everyone loved in the park. The one ride that people would talk about that would put Busch Gardens in competition with other parks like Disney and Universal. The one that you've seen me speak about in the last video and every single vlog. Curse of Dark Castle. We didn't get closure. We didn't even get rumors that maybe it was closing. We knew they were doing Frostbite. We knew they were doing the Santa's Workshop, which was weird. But they still never said anything. And then they come in this random day in January and they're like, we say goodbye to a legend of a ride. But you didn't even give us the opportunity to ride it for the last time? That ride had like almost like a cult following around people that loved it. And no one knew in 2017 when we were riding it that was our last time riding it. I mean, the fans, you see a line at Dark Coaster? That line that waits 4 hours, 3 hours? You think that's for Dark Coaster? No. It's for the continuation of the story of Dark Castle because everyone loved Dark Castle. And that's why everyone's so thrilled with Dark Coaster, regardless of the outcome of the coaster itself, which I mean, I like it. But regardless of the outcome of the coaster, it's a continuation and it's a ride in that building again because everyone loved having that ride. And everyone got angry when the park was like, oh yeah, by the way, social media video, yeah, it's closed. Hope you enjoyed your times riding it because you're never going to get to ride it again. And it's just like, what the heck? And then Mach Tower, a ride that everyone's just like, about, gets a full, we have loved this ride since it got here. These are your last few weeks to ride this ride before it closes. Now tell me what sense does it make that Mach Tower gets more closure than Dark Castle, a legendary Busch Gardens ride. A ride that will forever be talked about in Busch Gardens Williamsburg history as one of the pinnacle rides. One of the rides that set it apart from other parks. A ride that took Busch Gardens to another level. But the ride that got more closure, a mid-drop tower. With no story, just a drop tower. That's my soapbox that I've been waiting to let go of for so long. So I apologize, but I hope you enjoyed my soapbox. But the reason I call Mach Tower a beautiful disaster is because when you look at it, it was beautiful. It really brought the whole park together aesthetically. It was really a cool thing when you saw in the park and you could see the light on top of it. You're like, there, we're close. There's Mach Tower. I can see it. I can see it. And it was cool. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. And I do miss the observation aspect of it. And I really wish that Busch Gardens would still put in like an observation tower. Because I feel like that really would bring the whole world's most beautiful park thing together. Where you have something, you go up and you can see it. Now my thing is, they should build an Eiffel Tower observation tower in France. Now you're probably thinking that sounds familiar because just up the road at King's Dominion, they have an Eiffel Tower observation tower. Which really doesn't look like the Eiffel Tower. More looks like a wired traffic cone with a little ball on the top where people, observe. I think Busch Gardens could do a more accurate build of an Eiffel Tower and make it an observation tower. I think that might be the thing that could set it apart, but I don't know if they can even do that. I think it would be cool. I think they had the land to do it. Obviously, Busch Gardens has the land to do it. They have land on land on land. I do miss the fact that we had that aspect where you could go up in a tower and really just see the entirety of Busch Gardens and some of Williamsburg and Jamestown and the James River from above. And I do think it's a shame that we don't have that anymore. And I do personally believe that as we approach the 50th anniversary, which is in 2 years, of Busch Gardens, we saw how all out they went for their 40th back in 2015. So I think they're even going to try to double down on their 50th because they're really ramping up everything. Like if you're in the know, they're like ramping up stuff to get ready for that 50th because we might have a new coaster on the way. Another one. And I do believe we're going to get some type of thrill ride in that area where right now it's just a facade from Mach Tower. It's just a sitting area. And I think they have their beer there. I think it's like a little Oktoberfest beer section. I think there's definitely going to be a ride there. So keep your eyes out if you're interested in Busch Gardens as we approach the 50th in 2025. Because I think we're going to get a new ride there by then. It's a shame that the ride turned out the way it did. I think it had a lot of potential. It had the ability to be great. It just didn't meet expectations and just kind of fell short. Let me know what you guys thought about Mach Tower down below. Make sure to subscribe if you had already. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed. Make sure that bell button down below so you're notified every single time with a brand new Busch Gardens video to the channel. Make sure to go check out the Busch Gardens Williamsburg playlist on my channel so you can see all the videos I have of Busch Gardens. And I'm Morris and I'm out. A lot more of these videos to come. Peace. I'm so oblivious.